Word to the wise, don't black out your whole arm within one session, because I'm in a lot of pain. Nathrakh, a band that I've kept up with ever since I started YouTube, and for all you guys who have been following me since 2014 when I actively done YouTube, you guys know by now that I'm quite the fan of these guys, if you couldn't fucking tell already. I feel like though, out the years, I never really went that much in depth as to why I enjoy them so much and all these little extra components that I just find so incredible about them with their writing style. Because it's always just been, I say, you know, they're chaotic and melodic and catchy. Dave Hunt's vocals are crazy as fuck. And I don't know, I just never really felt like I gave them the proper description and analysis as to why I've obsessed over them still to this day. And that's what I'm going to do with this video and prove to you guys what makes Nathrakh just so damn good. By saying all that, we have to start at their early beginnings, all the way back in 1999 when they formed and started with a few demos that were really just your typical like raw black metal sound. Nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the ordinary, just really bare bones, straight to the point. But it wasn't until 2001 with their debut album, The Codex Necro, that they really created their own breed and sound within extreme music. Come on guys, when humanity is cancer, what fucking else do I need to say about this album to prove my point of how good this album is already from the start with that description? Back in the early 2000s and late 90s as well, yes, a lot of black metal bands were really experimenting a lot with industrial because of the whole Y2K thing, and Nathrakh kind of joined the party. But I will say, out of their whole discography from their start, this is easily their harshest. The production is just raw and gritty, and just everything just sounds so intense. And Dave Hunt's vocals, I really feel like, put himself on the map just from this album alone, because all the different pitches he can hit is just so abnormal and just something of a rare breed, I've always felt like. That's always just made him quite the fucking standout. As well too, another track I've always enjoyed on this album is Submission is for the Weak, that has just these punishing drums and guitars bashing you over the head. And it's funny too with this album, because they kind of started the whole like mystery about them, that they stated that they will never release lyric sheets or give out the lyrics to their songs. So ever since their early beginnings, they've always left people in question as to what they're saying, and years later people are still trying to depict exactly what the lyrics are. I mean, I've gone through so many different websites that do, you know, specifically lyrics for, you know, extreme metal bands, and still to this day there's so many inconsistencies as to what people are guessing he's shrieking out within all the albums they've done. The last thing I also want to bring up with this album is I really feel like they were pushing boundaries during this time, because they also had, you know, the element of grindcore into their sound, and really doing a lot of research about, you know, black and grindcore, because I was always obsessed with it. Really, there wasn't many bands doing this combination, and the only band I can really come across that was doing it before Nathrakh was Naked Whipper, which a lot of you guys really need to check out, because I see no one talking about them. It's some kick-ass black and grindcore from Texas that I would kill to get some merchandise by, but it's so hard to come by. But I really feel like, you know, again, Nathrakh was pushing boundaries by mixing these two together, and I think really, for me personally, for the early 2000s, this was some of the most intense shit you could come across. From here, we go to their sophomore album, which I always have a little trouble pronouncing, which I believe is titled Domain Non Dignus. Released back in late 2004, and this is where Nathrakh did a dramatic change, especially in the vocal department, because now Dave Hunt ain't just screaming and shrieking anymore, he's doing some clean singing. Personally, for me, my favorite track on here that showcases his absolute talent with his singing is This Cannot Be the End. As for the instrumental department, I really gotta say Mick Kenny really upped his game on the overall writing style, as it isn't so rough around the edges and harsh and abrasive guitar riffs that are more kind of sided with the Codex and Necro. This one has more groove, it's more melodic, and it really complements Dave Hunt's vocals and singing throughout the album. Overall, with this album, I must say this is the most industrial fueled out of everything in their discography. If you're a fan of Mysticum, or Thorns, or mid-era Abigor, I strongly recommend checking out this specific album because it has those dense and just bulky riffs that industrial black metal fans will surely eat up. Okay, so as great as the first two albums are in their discography, I truly feel like it wasn't until their mid-era when they really started resonating with fans and doing something really, really incredible work. So mid-era for me has always been my personal favorite with Anaal and Nathrakh, which now means we talk about their third album, Eschaton. God, I fucking love that song. Prior to this album, Anaal and Nathrakh was really just a studio-only based band. But I think after some popularity, Mick being friends with Shane, the bassist from Napalm Death, it really got their feet wet to just go out and start playing shows. And ever since then, in 2007, when they started making more festivals frequently and doing these short tours, they've been a live band ever since. Which I must say, this album alone is the most concert-friendly, extreme metal concert-friendly, I should say, out of everything in their discography. Because, simply put, these have like all the songs that you could really almost sing along to, and they're easily the catchiest. They had the best hooks, the thickest hooks as well, the very melodic, and Dave Hunt's vocals are just so sing-alongable with this album. Tracks like Between Shit and Piss We Are Born, Destroying Angel, When Lion Devours Both Dragon and Child. It's just like, it's so perfect for a concert environment, these tracks. I mean, come on, just listen to Destroying Angel. That song's just so goddamn explosive and just made for a concert environment. The other big reason why this is just so significant in their discography is this would really be one of the real first albums where they truly started getting a lot of guest session members to add in their own flavor and spin into things. And that's what I really admire so much about Anaal and Nathrakh is, yes, the main guys are Mick Kennedy and Dave Hunt, but they don't limit themselves to just them when it comes to making albums. You got Shane Embury from Napalm Death on bass here, and the closing track, Regression to the Mean, has Attila as a guest spot vocalist. Now we go to their fourth album and another favorite of mine, which is Hell is Empty and All the Devils Are Here. Let me tell you guys, the amount of fucking times I've played this album is ridiculous. Just like Eschaton, it carries the same formula with very melodic guitar riffs that have, again, the blend of both black metal and grindcore playing against one another, as long too with Dave Hunt's vocals that are just absolutely ridiculous and barbaric. His shrieks that it's just so hard to just believe this is coming out of a human being. Just listen to the song Shatter the Empyrean, because he is screaming in such a harsh pitch that it just sounds like he's in agony. And I know I just said it earlier, but these riffs, the songwriting, it's like, how is this band blending black metal and grindcore, yet being so goddamn catchy and fun. Again, Shatter the Empyrean, The Final Absolution, Sanction Extremis. Like, I don't understand how this band is playing so intense yet so catchy at the same time. It's just always boggled my mind, and maybe I'm just like that one weirdo that it's clicked with me so hard that I can't help but give it just so much of praise. But I mean, like, seriously, god fucking damn, did you not hear that guitar riff on Shatter the Empyrean? As well, too, just like I stated with Eschaton, there is a guest spot on here. The vocalist of A Circle of Dead Children comes up on the track Genetic Noose, and for the first time, I think maybe ever, I could be wrong, but Anaal Nathrakh blended both melodic black metal and brutal death metal, and the results are fucking kick-ass. Please, guys, if you can tell me anyone that was doing that style before them or blending those genres together, I'm all ears for it. I'm probably going to say this a lot, but this is what makes Anaal Nathrakh just, so special to me, I guess, is that they're not afraid, Mick and Dave, to get out of their comfort zones with what they're familiar with the Anaal Nathrakh sound, bring in these guest spots and really kind of like reinvent themselves within just one track and do something really out of their comfort zone. And that's the thing with every Anaal Nathrakh album, even the ones we're going to be talking about in a little bit, is that they always just do like these oddball tracks that really become just such standouts within each album. Following that, we go to the fan favorite and arguably my favorite as well, which is obvious, In the Constellation of the Black Widow. Out of everything they've ever done, from now, before, and what we're going to be talking about in a little bit, this is easily the darkest they've ever sounded. Which, because of that, it's the meanest they've sounded, and it's really everything you want within black metal and grindcore fusion, and god damn, the results are just incredible. Every single song on here just has like maybe one particular riff or maybe one particular hook or chorus that will just get drilled into your head, and it's just 34 minutes of just perfection of what you want with extreme music. Dave Hunt is just absolutely perfect on here with his execution, vocal range, and I know I've said it so many times, but I'll say it again. The closing track, which is Blood Eagles, how in the fuck is he screaming like this? Like, seriously, that just sounds like a cyborg. That doesn't sound like it belongs to come out of a human being. As well, too, it has one of the best guitar riffs that Mick really honestly ever wrote, which is the track Satan Christ. It's massive and epic sounding and almost has like a really strong essence of like a second wave kind of like traditional raw black metal style to some degree, just how that riff is played out, and goddamn, it's awesome. Again, there's another guest spot on here on the track Oil Upon the Sores, which I believe his name is Marcus Barba, and this guy just fucking tears into it. It's another awesome kick-ass track. I know, I need to stop, guys, because now at this rate I'm just going to just give you a preview of every single song on this album. But again, for me personally, I know I've said it a billion times, but just in case you've never heard me say it, if you want the absolute peak and best in the Constellation the Black Widow, Anaal Nathrakh, can't stress it enough. The follow-up to In the Constellation the Black Widow is Passion, which I gotta say now, at this point, this is what I thought at first was one of their weaker albums, but after giving it multiple listens and let it setting in to my listening routine with this band, I gotta say this is the most interesting album they have in their discography. And the inconsistencies and the experimentation with this album is what makes it, again, just so interesting. For example, they have the longest song they ever wrote, which is Drug Fucking Abomination, which clocks in a little above 7.5 minutes, which for them, usually, averagely, they're around 3 to 4 minutes, which is quite the big difference. Then they also have the shortest song they ever wrote, which is Locus of Damnation, which clocks in at only 1 minute. But what really makes this interesting for me is the whole lineup when you look at the guest spot. Of course, you got Anaal Nathrakh, but then you look at the guest list, you also have Maurice from Gnaw Their Tongues doing the outro on here, this weird industrial dark ambient noise outro that really makes it all the more unsettling as you've listened through the whole album. And then there's Paragon Pariah, which has Rainer fucking Ladferman on an Anaal Nathrakh song. Just looking at this on the lineup, I couldn't help but say,
"Oh baby, a triple! Oh yeah!"
Like seriously, it's like a dream come fucking true, alright? That it just blows my mind that all of this is a thing on one fucking album. And the more I listen to this album, the more and more it becomes a new favorite of mine that's really now in the top 3 when it used to be in the bottom 2. And I gotta say again this, it's the most experimental, and I really feel like after this album, I hate to say we get into the later era, and this is where things kinda start to decline a little bit. Which now brings us to their 7th album, which is gonna be Vanitas. I guess for me what makes this kind of like a declining factor for the quality of Anaal Nathrakh and their writing is I feel like after Passion, where they just went balls out with creativity and being experimental and having all of just these, you know, esoteric artists come into play here, I really feel like at that point they really kind of used up a lot of their creativity, and Vanitas is kind of just like a return to form to trying to grasp back onto albums like Eschaton or Hell is Empty and All the Devils Are Here, because really the standout factor about this is that it's just really melodic. Okay, plus it also has Forging Towards the Sunset, which has a killer fucking chorus as well. But again, like I stated, that's really it. The guest spots aren't anything really all that special or mind-blowing like in previous albums that kind of push them out of their comfort zone. And yeah, the writing is still good. It's no by far a terrible album, but it, again, like I stated, it's just really melodic. But I will say with this album, it does have a deep cut that I really love that really no one talks about, especially the die-hard Anaal Nathrakh fans, which is the track Make Glorious the Embrace of Saturn, which honestly has one of the best ever guitarist Mick Kenny wrote within his whole career. And that's the thing with this album, there's really not much else to talk about. I mean, other than maybe the fact, if we're really nitpicking, the outro of this album has a guitar solo, which is rare to come by with an Anaal Nathrakh album. But again, it's just like a really melodic black metal album, and the grindcore aspect comes in bits and pieces. So for me personally, I always felt like this was kind of like the beginning of the declining factor for them. Now, we go on to their 8th album, which I feel like a lot of us can agree with is the weakest album, that being Deseratum. I guess why so many people shit on this particular album by them is, one, the production. It is way too compressed to the point where everything just sounds so mechanical, especially the drums on here just sound so incredibly programmed that it's a little bit irritating. And yes, everything else they've done, the drums have been programmed, but in a way that just sounded realistic and still fit within the music. This, on the other hand, it just seems so pure, especially for an Anaal Nathrakh album. As for the writing on this album, really to summarize it, it's really just like a really dark necro take on deathcore. Now, if you don't believe me, just check out this sample right here on the track of Maggots And Humanity, which I gotta admit now, it's honestly my personal favorite song on the album. And I feel like why now this huge change within Anaal Nathrakh's sound is when you look at Mick Kenny, not only does he do guitars for Anaal Nathrakh, but he's also a producer. And around this time in the mid-2010s, because this album was released in 2014, he was also producing albums for Carnifex, Bleeding Through, and Motionless and White. And I feel like producing these albums kind of rubbed off on him a bit to try to experiment with the Anaal Nathrakh, make everything a little bit more compressed, and bring in these deathcore-like moments within the album, which I guess a lot of people found a lot of distaste to. Which I guess for me, the real big turnoff is just how compressed this album is, because I want some of that raw, thick, necro sound that Anaal Nathrakh has carried over since the early beginnings. From the follow-up of Desideratum, we get to their 9th album, which is The Whole of the Law. I remember when this album premiered, the track, which was Depravity, Favours, The Bold, back in 2016, and my eyes opened up so big in excitement as I clicked on the link, and goddamn, I was so happy to hear just the improvement from this one track alone, that the production was nowhere as compressed, and it had that thick and just ugly sound you would want with at least a modern day Anaal Nathrakh. And after listening to this album in full, I gotta say the one thing that makes this album have its own identity from everything else that Anaal Nathrakh has done is really now they're utilizing a lot more different samples and electronics, and even some synth work on here, especially again the choirs that come in and out on the song Depravity, Favours, The Bold. As well, there's the track, this great Spectre, which I feel like they really utilize these electronics moments to their full potential and make this weird kind of like twister sounding of black metal and grindcore and some electronic synth work all clashing into one another. And it's just this absolute onslaught of a clusterfuck of just noises and textures hitting you. Overall, I guess for me, does this album match up with Eshkatan in the Constellation, The Black Widow, or Hell is Empty? Not even close. But compared to Desideratum, this is a huge step up. And now we come to their latest album as of yet, released back in 2018, which is A New Kind of Horror. Let's just start off by saying the song Forward, worst song they ever wrote. And a part of me feels like they're almost like aware of the fact that it's like a throwaway song or just something that's not that good. Because this is the only song they've ever released the lyrics to out of all the tracks they've done within the time span they've been around for these 20 plus years. So in short, when talking about this album, I just try to forget the fact that Forward is smack dab in the middle of it. Now, instrumentally with this album, there's really nothing that groundbreaking. It's really straight to the point, you know, the style you would get with Anaal Nathrakh. The grindcore aspect has emerged more than previous two albums, I must say, and it's still got these crazy hectic moments that with these tremolo pick guitars that just add so much mayhem and chaos within the album. But the thing that I would say is the truly standout point with this album is Dave Hunt really does some phenomenal work and really even experiments with his own voice. Now, as you guys know, with Dave Hunt, he'll do these crazy shrieks and roars and just yells, just all these crazy transitions with his vocals. And then of course there are the clean vocals he does that are just soaring and epic and almost opera-like. But when the track comes on here that's New Bethlehem, he does like these high acapellas that is really similar to that of King Diamond, and it's fucking badass, and I hope he does it more in the future. Just check this out. In conclusion, with everything I've said about Anaal Nathrakh, what's always made them a personal favorite for me, that I discussed now with you guys, is that every album, there's just a certain thing they do that makes this album still have the Anaal Nathrakh feel and sound, but have its own special little tweaks and characteristics about them that makes each album just such a standout when you follow along within the timeline of their discography. Along with the fact that, like I stated, Dave Hunt and Mick Kenny is not afraid to go out of their comfort zones, let in these guest spots to really challenge them and experiment with their sound. And again, it's kind of like this band that has like this aspect of expect the unexpected, but still they give you the intensity of industrial black metal and grindcore no matter what. For me personally, that's been the key aspects that's made me just keep up with them every minute and every second of everything they do. And I'm really looking forward to their new album that's supposedly going to be released later on this year, and I really hope they stick with this mindset because it's won me over now for years and hopefully for more years to come. But yeah, guys, really dive into Anaal Nathrakh if you haven't. Like I stated, strongly recommend you start off with In the Constellation, The Black Widow. It's the fan favorite. It has the best material I think they've personally ever done, and hopefully this band and video has convinced you as to why I've obsessed over them for 6+ years now.
It wouldn't be satisfying to us, you know. We like stuff that's actually got some structure to it and whatnot. So it's not an attempt to make the most extreme music possible, but what we want to do happens to be really quite abrasive. So
more about dynamics as well, you know, like you can't just play fast all the time, because if you put like slower sections in, it makes the fast bits seem more crazy, and then you make the slow bits sound totally brutal as well. So it's more, it's just more dynamics, and it's more interesting.